Boltworks Today is a viewer-supported show. To learn more on how you can get involved and watch extended, ad-free versions of these videos, please visit our website, boltworkstoday.com, and click on the top of the heading where it says Support This Show. Thank you. Occasionally with a project, in order to keep moving forward, you sometimes have to take a step back. Well, sometimes two steps back, but I'm on a 1974 Cape Dory Typhoon. And the area that we're going to be looking at here today is this aft deck. Now, the Typhoons came with an engine mount bracket, kind of a flip-over bracket, that mounted right here. And it was, I believe it was originally rated for having a 3 or a 4 horse outboard engine mounted on there. Now, for whatever reason, over the years, the area where this engine bracket is mounted has caused some pretty severe cracking. Now, the part that's going to kind of force us to take a bit of a step backwards is that there is no access to get to the underside of this aft deck. There is a small 6-inch inspection port here, but it's not large enough to be able to get in there and really do anything. Also, there are 2 quarter berths that run along the underside of these lazarettes, but there again, once you get to about this point in the quarter berths, you're looking at an area that's roughly 12 by 12 to get through there and to be able to work on the underside of this deck. It's just, I can't do it. I've fit in some pretty tight spaces, but I can't jam myself through there and be able to have room to work, especially if I'm going to be having epoxy and stuff. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be cutting in an access alongside this damaged area on the aft deck. And then that will allow us to come in and then from the underside epoxy a 1/2-inch marine plywood up against the bottom of this and suck it up tight. We're going to be running some screws if we need to, some bolts. We want to suck that plywood in tight to the underside of this surface. And that's going to help stiffen up this entire deck, and it's going to transfer any of that load, that torque load from the engine out through a much larger area. Well, I've gotten this access area cut out, and the coring for this back deck, looks to be about 1/2-inch balsa. And it's dry, which is good. And balsa is a great material when it's used in the proper place. And this is just my opinion, and mine alone. But I personally don't see this as a suitable area for balsa, especially if you're going to be having an outboard bracket mounted on here. The way that I always do it when I'm when I'm working through repairs is any kind of a stress area, whether it be through a mast, through any winches, anything where something is bolted on where it's going to be taking on some stress, that really needs to be plywood, in my opinion. But what do I know? Now, because I'm going to be looking for some squeeze out from the epoxy when I tighten all this up, I'm going to line the bottom with some plastic. And I am using West System epoxy. And the filler that I'm using is their 403. That's just a very good additive when you're laminating or bonding one thing to another. So it's got good gap filling capabilities, and it stays in place, and it holds a lot of resin. So I'm going to be laying this on, like I said, very thick, because I want run out. I want it to be raining epoxy down below. I want to see epoxy shooting up coming up through these, all these little holes. So, well, I guess we'll see. All right. So let's see how messy we can get trying to stick this in place. It's raining. Ooh, there we go. Ha! That's exactly what I'm looking for, right there. I love it when a plan comes together. I suppose I'll clean up the excess here. But other than that, now I'm hands off for the night. Now with our epoxy set up from our first panel that we set in place, now the next thing I want to focus on is closing up our access hole. And to do that, it's going to be very similar to how we did this side. But basically I'm going to take the same half-inch plywood, slide it in, and epoxy it in from underneath. Now the one kind of tricky part about this one is that there's a slight camber that runs across the stack, or a slight arch that runs across. And by using a half-inch piece of plywood, it's not going to want to conform to this curvature very well. So what I did is I took the plywood, ran it through my table saw, and basically put a bunch of thin kerfs along the bottom, about every half-inch, that are almost up to the very top of this. And what that does is it helps to turn this into a piece of bendy ply. Now, as long as I've got this backer piece in, I might as well go ahead and set my balsa patch in as well. Same epoxy. This whole time I've been using the same filler. It's a 403 filler. Well, it's the following day, and the epoxy that I laid up around the edges here to kind of taper in I guess the transition between the old and the new material has cured, it's set up, and it's ready to be sanded. So now what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to come in with my sander and basically remove most of what I just laid up. I want to expose fresh glass, again, all the way around this perimeter, and give me some good clean material for tabbing on to with the new fiberglass. All right, well, we've got everything prepped and pretty much ready to go. I'm going to be laying up a lot of glass, so I'm going to be moving pretty quick. I don't want my resin to start melting cups on me. So some of you will be happy about this, but no talking here. I gotta get this material down. It's 7 o'clock and I want to get out of here. So enjoy the music. Okay, now for these smaller stress cracks that we're running through the old engine mounts, what I'm going to be doing is I've got some little strips of 1708 already pre-cut. And I'm going to be using the 1708 basically as the bridge or the gap over the actual cracks themselves. And then I'm going to be coming in and doing a lot of my bulk and filler and kind of joining into the surrounding areas with the chop strand.
This has been a Boatworks Today production.